Hello, everybody.
Hey, nice to see all of you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. You seem like an awfully busy guy. There are a few organizations, a few courses, a few startups that all kind of have your name with them. So I'm curious, starting things off, where are you most operationally involved? Like, what's your day-to-day look like?
Um, the rise of AI means that there are a lot of things we need to do to help it reach its full potential. So these days, I'm spending most of my time at three organizations. Landing AI is helping large companies jumpstart AI adoption. So if you come from a large company and you want help figuring out AI, that's what Landing AI does. AI Fund is a startup studio that creates new startups from scratch. Everything from coming with idea to validation, MVP, hiring the initial team, capitalizing, launching on. And then Deep Learning AI is our educational arm. So a lot of individuals, if you want to learn about AI, learn the techniques of deep learning, or if you're non-technical and want to understand what AI is and how it may affect your business, deeplearning.ai produces educational content, often working with Coursera, in order to teach people about AI. I hope that with these three teams, Landing AI, AI Fund, and Deep Learning.ai, we could build many pieces of the ecosystem we need to help AI reach its full potential.
So of those three orgs, like when you wake up and you're looking at your to-do list, which I imagine might be kind of long, which of those organizations has the longest list day after day, you feel like?
I'm probably spending most of my time spending a lot of brain cycles on Landing AI right now, which actually is one of AI Fund's portfolio companies. But one of the things I'm excited about is because you know my background, long ago, sometime back, I built a Google Brain team, started and built a Google Brain team, which helped Google become very good at AI, and then also built the AI group at Baidu, which helped Baidu become arguably China's greatest AI company. But if you look at what we as what the AI community has done, we've transformed software internet companies, companies like Google and Baidu, and many others, Facebook, Microsoft, and other software internet companies. I think the next phase for AI is to go and transform all of the other industries as well, everything from manufacturing to agriculture to retail to healthcare. And so that's what Landing AI hopes to do.
So you left Baidu 2 years ago. In that time, what have the trends or kind of changes in the enterprise AI scene looked like?
I think it's all been up and to the right.
Okay.
If you look at the most recent AI index, great report. I think the number of jobs in deep learning increased, I think, 35-fold over a 2-year period. And this is a reflection of companies wanting to hire more people in AI and deep learning. And we see this demand as well with the deep learning courses we offer through deeplearning.ai and Coursera. Or if you look at maybe a more questionable metric, CB Insights had this wonderful chart showing the number of mentions of AI by CEOs on earnings calls. And the chart kind of looks like that, and whoop. And I have no idea if the number of times CEOs mention AI on earning calls is indicative of anything.
Could be a negative trend. Buzzwords, toss them out there.
But I think maybe the one thing it does indicate is the rise in enterprise demand
Okay.
for AI services.
So, you mentioned a few industries that Landing AI was focused on. Why is manufacturing such a big early focus?
We started in manufacturing, and I think, for example, we do a lot of work in visual inspection, where rather than using human eyes to check if a smartphone has a scratch or if a compressed canister has a leak, you could use computer vision and a learning algorithm to do that at greater reliability. And this is helping factories inspect many different things, manufactured objects for scratches or leaks and so on, and improve yield and quality. But beyond manufacturing, doing a lot of work also in agriculture and healthcare. And as one example, doing a lot of work with a agriculture machinery company to take traditional agriculture machines, there's now not very smart agriculture machines, to try to put sensors onto them and to optimize how they perform using machine learning. So won't it be cool? Oh, and this is what we're working on. If the same farmer, same field, but put in a smarter machine, can optimize the planting and the yield of the same farm. I think this can help drive farmers' productivity, help farmers that otherwise may not make that much money, help them get a better living, and also optimize the environmental effects of how we produce agriculture.
So, I mean, there are obviously a lot of AI SaaS companies out there that have been, getting started. Why did you see the space and feel like you needed to, co-found one yourself?
AI is a SaaS. One interesting thing about AI is I don't think of AI as a lot of applications of AI cannot be implemented as a SaaS service where you swipe your credit card and then use it, and then your company is now AI enabled. In fact, one of the biggest misconceptions, one of the biggest misunderstandings I see for a lot of CEOs for AI still is that the impact of AI on many industries is strategic rather than tactical. And because AI is still so new, maybe I'll explain this using an older example of the internet instead. There were a lot of CEOs that thought, hey, the internet is a big thing. This was many years ago, right? Five years ago, maybe 10 years ago. And Ms. says, hey, I got a website. I got this internet thing covered. But that just was not true. If you look at companies that learn to use the internet properly, for example, UPS and FedEx, is not that they build a website, is that they re-architect a lot of the logistics data flow using the internet, and this is fundamental to the way they do business. Or companies like Microsoft and Apple. Microsoft and Apple were not internet companies. They were founded, operated, made tons of money before there was even such a thing as a modern internet, but they transformed into internet companies. So the internet has had a strategic impact on these companies, ranging from things like FedEx, UPS, Apple, Microsoft. And I think AI will also have a strategic impact on many industries. And what I mean is that the way you compete, the way you create value in the future will be different than it is today. To use one more example, look what Uber did to the taxi industry. The internet enabled that, internet and mobile. And so it wasn't that if you're a taxi company, you build a website, then you got the internet covered. No, what happened was the internet and mobile re-architected the nature of the industry, the way you compete, how you create value, how you build a defensible business. And I'm seeing early phases of that now with AI also coming in to have a strategic impact where we're re-architecting the nature of different businesses. Companies that embrace it, that have a correct vision of the future and build the pieces they need will survive or even thrive. And companies that think, all I need to build a website. And now maybe my website needs a little, TensorFlow plugins. I can have whatever. Those companies, many of those companies, I think, will perish. So I think I'm starting to see more CEOs get smart about this. But how we are re-architecting different industries is still being sorted out. And I have a clearer view of some industries than others.
If you're not, a company that's investing in research heavily, or you're not a tech titan, but you're a medium to large size enterprise, is it worth building out your own AI engineering team, or should you just be using one of these, startup services?
Yeah, for the large enterprises, it's clear. I think every large enterprise probably has the resources and must spend those resources to figure out AI from a strategic and a tactical point of view. For the medium-sized companies, it is a bit harder, but I think that to the extent that AI could have a transformative impact on how your industry is structured, I think it is incumbent even for many medium-sized company CEOs. And actually, I'm not sure what medium-sized means. I think if you're $1 billion and up, you better figure this out by market cap. If you're $100 billion, you maybe have only a little bit of resources to think through what is AI. Recently I met a company with about 2,000 employees, and they told me that they were getting, it might have been overkill, but they told me they were getting every single one of their 2,000 employees to take AI for Everyone, which DeepLearning.ai offers on Coursera, because they wanted every one of the 2,000 employees, including, everyone, engineers, product managers, receptionists, marketer, recruiter, to know enough AI to think through. This might be overkill. Maybe not every company needs to do this, but I thought, wow, this will make this company incredibly thoughtful about how to navigate into this future.
Interesting. Okay. I think there have been a number of trends recently. It seems like some of the AI startups today are relying pretty heavily on human labor as to train some of their systems. Do you think that this is a trend that's going to continue for the next few years? Just employing thousands of people to train this data is being a part-time human in the loop going to be like a career for a while?
Yeah, I think that until you've been on the insides of an AI team, it's hard to understand how insatiable our stupid learning algorithms are for data. So I think the need for massive numbers of labels will continue and quite likely even grow for the foreseeable future as AI continues to infect more industries where there isn't as much data. Um, you know, in terms of developments of AI, one example, I think the software community, we spend a lot of time figuring out how to manage code, right? So we have, really clever ideas like version control. And it took us a long time to evolve from, was it CVS to Subversion to Git? And we have a lot of software engineering processes like code reviews and Scrum and Agile. I think the processes for managing data are still much less mature. So how do you version data? How do you share data? How do you manage, what do you keep in the cloud? What do you run on your laptop? What if some of your data is... Oh, this is one of the things that you never do in academia, but you do all the time on practical projects, which is edit your test set, right? In academia, you download a test set, you're supposed to evaluate against it and publish a paper, you don't mess with it. But on practical production projects, we find all the time that sometimes the test set is mislabeled or wrong, and you just go and edit the test set. But how do you deal with that data, and what are the systematic processes for editing the test set? I think that the maturity of our tools for managing data is much lower than the maturity of tools for managing and editing a code. So I think that's another important direction that I think the community will go in.
Where do you feel like the next deep learning breakthrough is going to happen?
Closely related to data, one subset of deep learning I'm very excited about is the rise of small data, or sometimes also called low data. But a lot of deep learning was driven by the software consumer internet companies, companies like Google, Baidu, Facebook, and a few others. And consumer internet companies have tons of data, hundreds of millions or maybe billions of users, and they generate a lot of data. So the previous wave, or the current wave of deep learning, a lot of the algorithms were designed for when you have massive amounts of data. If you look in other industries, for example, agricultural machinery company we're working with, we could collect data from a dozen farms easily, but there are not 100 million farms that we could go to collect data from. So what is a learning algorithm that can work, even if you have only data from, a dozen or 20 IID farms? Or manufacturing. If you're trying to tell if a smartphone has a scratch, you do not have a million pictures of scratched smartphones because fortunately no factory has manufactured a million scratched smartphones that need to be thrown away. So can you get your algorithms to work only with 10 images? So one of the cutting edges of deep learning that I'm most excited about is the rise of small data. And due to advances in deep learning, things like transfer learning, one-shot learning, few-shot learning, data augmentation, data generation, I'm seeing, actually also self-supervised learning, I'm seeing exciting progress on this. And one of the things that my teams at Landing AI and AI Fund have done is spend a lot of time thinking about small data, because the ability to get a deep learning algorithm to work, even with 10 training examples, that allows us to break into a lot of new industries where you just do not have, a million or heaven forbid, 100 million data points.
Are you going to end up having to rely on human contractors kind of parsing through some of that stuff when you have even less training data?
Let's see. We do some labeling ourselves,
Okay.
with some with contractors and some in-house with our own team.
Okay.
And I think we do a lot of things that, and I think one example, we do a fair amount of transfer learning where we use various data sets, learn representations, and then transfer it. But often it's the details of those algorithms that then make a huge difference to the final performance.
Mm-hmm. So switching gears pretty heavily here. You worked at Google in the US and Baidu in China. I'm curious of your thoughts on kind of the AI race between the two countries and what advantages you think that China might have.
Why are you asking only about China advantages, not American advantages, right?
Well, we'll get there soon.
I think the AI race is a misnomer. Uh, much as the rise of electricity benefited all nations, and I think today I'm very happy that Singapore has a great electric grid, and the fact that people in Singapore have that can keep the lights on all the time. It doesn't make us in the U.S. any worse off, and maybe we could learn from how they run their electric grid. They could learn from us.
They can both learn from you.
No, it's doing my best. But I feel really privileged to be able to learn from many communities around the world. I mean that very sincerely. I think the China internet companies are very close to market, very good at going to market. I think America still has an edge in basic research. But I would say really to people of both nations, or really people of all nations, I think we're at a point where all nations should learn from all nations. By the way, fun fact, Jeff Dean tweeted out several months ago that we're now at 100 archive papers per day on AI. And this volume of research is not generated by any one country, it's generated by the global community, and all of us just learn from, the whole world.
So when we're talking about learning, from everyone, obviously China has a national strategy in terms of how it's rolling out AI. Should, other countries have a strategy like this?
I think that many countries should have a thoughtful national strategy. And one of the things about AI is it's still so immature that there's still room for many nations to have a big role in this future AI-empowered world that we're building. Frankly, one of the mistakes we made with the last technological disruption, the rise of the internet, was I think we created tremendous wealth. But we also contributed to wealth inequality. A lot of wealth we created was concentrated, in Silicon Valley and in Beijing. One of the things I hope to see with the rise of AI is we will create a lot of wealth, that's very, very clear, but for this wealth to be fairly shared. And I think part of that means making sure that we have many centers of AI around the world rather than, concentrated primarily in two places. So I hope that many nations around the world will have thoughtful AI strategies so that they can build powerful AI capabilities, focusing on maybe solving the national problems where I think many countries can be competitive, right? Can do unique work that are harder to do in Silicon Valley and Beijing if they're supporting their own local industries.
Where are you looking to invest? I know that you were in Colombia recently.
So in addition to our California team, we also have a team in Colombia. It's one of the places that I think has a lot of momentum in AI, and I'm optimistic about building there. But more broadly, I was in Taiwan last week where I was visiting a nonprofit AI lab and seeing new models of innovation, and I was in London back in April, and I think that there'll be many opportunities for a lot of countries to build up their teams. I'm very excited about the Colombia team, but I would encourage all nations with some resources to think through an AI strategy and how to invest.
So a quick aside on the AI fund. Are you actually investing through that right now?
Yes. So the piece of the ecosystem, right? Landing AI helps large companies become good at AI. AI Fund builds AI startups from scratch. So we're a startup studio, and right now we are building 10 companies in parallel. Two are publicly known, which are Landing AI, which is a portfolio of AI funds, as well as Warbot, digital mental health care company run by my friend Alison Darcy, plus 8 others that haven't been announced yet. But at AI Fund, our team and our friends and partners brainstorm many startup ideas, and then our associates team will select ideas to work on. We're very good at falsifying ideas. There have been ideas where, we will work on it for 2 weeks and then kill the idea. So we're very efficient at falsifying ideas. And it's usually only after the idea has reached a relatively high level of conviction where with validated customer demand, kind of maybe built an MVP, validated that it's technically feasible, that we will then bring on a permanent team, founding team, CEO, and then also inject capital. We'll fund the company in order to have it go forward. One of the myths we tell in Silicon Valley is that whenever there's a disruptive technology, it's always the startups that win, and that's just not true. With the rise of the internet, there were startups like Google, Facebook, Amazon back in the day that did well. There are also incumbents like Microsoft and Apple that did very well. So I think these two pieces, AI Fund and Landing AI, try to do these two complementary things where we take advantage of this very disruptive technology to both go after opportunities that are more efficiently done as a startup and go after opportunities that are more efficiently done by helping large enterprises transform or to become AI empowered.
Interesting. So wrapping stuff up, I'm personally interested in this. Obviously, U.S. consumers and Chinese consumers kind of have different expectations of user privacy. And after running an AI program in China, how did your thoughts on privacy shift?
I think that the gap in expectations is narrowing. I think that recently, things in China change so quickly. It's wonderful and sometimes very terrifying. But recently, there were a few data breaches in China that were publicized, and this is actually causing many Chinese consumers to have a greater desire for privacy. So I think some of the things we see in the news, it changes just in a matter of weeks or months. I think the gap in expectation is privacy, while there is still a gap, has been narrowing somewhat.
Do you think between working at Google and Baidu, your thoughts on your own privacy pretty much maintained?
Yes, boy, not many people know this. I am very careful with my personal data privacy.
Okay.
And I do many things that I know many other people do not do with my own data.
Are you hiding your faces from the facial recognition cameras?
Actually, that I don't care about.
What do you care about?
I think that without naming companies, I think I put a lot of thought into which are the companies that have access to my data, and make sure to use encryption in all the places where it seems prudent to do so. My laptop does have that little sticker thing over the webcam, and I think I try to be very thoughtful about what are the digital devices in my environment, and what if something happens to one of them, and how to make sure that reasonable amounts of security and privacy is maintained. Now
great.
you know.
Okay, great. Hey, well, thanks so much for the conversation.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, because those are.
Great.
Thank you, guys.